right, ladies and gentlemen, we have our dear friend of the show, Miss Anastasia Andrianova from Akropolis, and we're very excited to talk to her today. I have a lot of good questions to ask her about her ongoing project with her and her team. Anna, how are you today?
Hey, doing really well, thank you. We just wrapped up our first community call, which went amazingly well, and yeah, so happy to be here.
Yes, and we appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. We know Akropolis has been up to some awesome things recently. And for those who are not familiar with Anna, can you kind of tell us a little bit about yourself and what the Akropolis project is up to right now?
Yeah, sure. So I spent quite a bit of time on the investment banking side and private equity prior to kind of delving into really, yeah, I guess the world of crypto, which I have discovered in kind of early 2017, with my sort of idea at the time was to build a distributed pension fund. That really came through my prior work in private equity, and then later on experience on the investment and advisory side with pension funds. And it was pretty clear that after the first financial crisis of 07-08, that we'll have a repeat of this, because really none of the lessons have been really integrated into our system. And what I've seen was that when a state or frankly a corporate is going through a crisis, typically the first thing they do is they tap into the funds that are allocated to pensions. So the most vulnerable people basically end up picking the largest tab, right? So we're seeing it right now when the losses are democratized, but the gains are assigned to the risk takers, and that really has been very clearly demonstrated with what's we've seen with the very recent bailout. So it was that systems thinking that really made me curious to explore. Okay, what can we do with the tech that's available to us? And so this was approximately when the project started. We tried it in a variety of ways. Initially, we thought that we'll be able to start on the institutional side, but then after Ether collapsed, so has the enthusiasm of investment committees, of institutional pension funds, and we pivoted into a crypto-native solution, right? And
right.
So what we're doing right now is we're effectively building synthetic savings and high-yield accounts that a lot of what's happening in the current ecosystem that's referred to as yield farming. So a lot of that activity is unsustainable, but there's some really interesting value and really interesting developments that can be used to create, synthetic savings accounts, which is what we're focusing on right now. So we have we've been on mainnet since August. This was after spending a week as part of Idea Collab Project Validation Day that we've been selected for. So there's a sort of series of events really starting from spring. And the team won Hack Money Hackathon. Then Idea Collab selected us for it was almost like a mini incubator with a variety of teams, right? Where you pitch an idea, then the team help you question it, iterate on it, get feedback. That was incredibly useful. We were really grateful to Idea Collab team. It was tough, but really enjoyable experience for us, and we got so much positive feedback from our community members, and some of them were beta testers at the time, that we really just decided, okay, we clearly hit on something there. Let's just listen to our users as much as possible, shorten the feedback loop as much as we possibly can, and we just literally kind of opened ourselves to literally being incredibly responsive to users' requests, right? And all of them And I guess it really shows to much higher quality of people in this second or actually third wave of kind of crypto boom, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the inputs were really high value and very constructive. So it was like having basically outsourced product strategy, right? So where we are right now is we shipped what we call as Akropolis OS, which is essentially a modular framework for quickly spinning up financial DAOs, or you can call them for-profit capital pools. You can use any language you want, but ultimately you can use it to build a yield farm or a lending aggregator or whatever you wish. It's very, very customizable. And we'll launch 2 products on it. So we have Delphi, which is a meta-yield aggregator, and we're going to be including proprietary yield strategies into that shortly. And that's Sparta, so it's a solution for under-collateralized lending, which we're going to be showcasing a little bit later, just because there's limited bandwidth.
Right. Yeah. So that brings up a few good points, and I have a couple questions regarding the Delphi product that was just released. That was an absolutely awesome, brilliant idea that you and Kate had, and I'm glad you executed so well because it's so user friendly. And I wanted to talk about Delphi and what was kind of the inspiration, or was that mostly feedback from your users saying, "Hey, this is a product that we really want for Akropolis"?
Well, initially it was me asking Kate to just automate DCA because it was just a chore doing it with the current tools. But then also as soon as Compound released the comp token and seeing the ripple effect it had in the ecosystem, it was pretty clear for us that users will move away from seeking yield from borrow lending rates of the protocol to essentially just harvesting and selling the governance tokens, right? Mm-hmm. Because it's just a lot more profitable, right? So therefore, the initial product design was to capture all these tokens, but to keep them rather than sell them. Okay, so this is where we took a different direction. For example, from other products, our expectation at the time was that people would not want to be selling them straight away,
right?
But taking a long position on those protocols, right? With DeFi developing at absolutely breakneck speed, and obviously a lot of the inevitable scams, some genuine experiments, some less so genuine experiments, it became very clear that the liquidity mining reward tokens are, in majority of cases, just being sold off, and all that people ultimately are looking at is the gross yield that's often represented, or rather misrepresented, by APY, right? Right. And that's a separate conversation. APY is it's a great marketing tool, but it's a massively incorrect metric, right? It obviously references a return with implied sale price of liquidity mining token that is current in that particular moment, right?
Right.
T+1, it will be entirely different APY, but people don't seem to really question that a lot. So yeah, so therefore, what you really need to look at is basically net the 24-hour or 1 hour or 7-day return, ideally net of gas costs, and that will be as close to the true figure that you will get. But of course, because a lot of the costs are unpredictable, I think what more and more people have been discovering is that they get attracted by super high APY, but then by the time they exit the yield farming protocol, the results are very different from what they were hoping for, right?
Right.
And the returns are lower. Yeah. So what we are working towards is adding more value accrual layers, rolling out proprietary products, so that whilst we take advantage of the trend and we're happy to use liquidity mining for bootstrapping purposes, we are very focused on fundamental value creation to the extent it's possible in crypto.
Once again, like I've said before, when we first originally talked, was you guys executed so well on really capturing all segments of the market with a lot of your products you've developed, whether that's the beginner, the intermediate, or the expert that have really just gained interest in the DeFi, can access that easily through the DCA, dollar cost averaging tools, or if you want to get really involved with DeFi, you go into Delphi. So I think you guys really did an awesome job of capturing a lot of the target market. So I have a question though that I want to get into with the overarching mission here of Akropolis. What would you really identify that as?
Probably as close as the original mission that I mentioned to you. So I think we will, while we have entered already a very challenging time from the macroeconomic perspective. I think a lot of people that, let's say, captive to the fiat ecosystem will lose a lot of money, and I've been saying it for a while, and it's a great worry. We've seen that happen in Russia, in Poland, and Argentina, where, let's say, public pension funds have been raided because by states that were experiencing substantial budget deficit, for example, right, or where people's savings simply evaporate through inflation, right? And obviously Venezuela being a prime example of that. Our focus is really on developing synthetic savings and high-yield accounts and interest sparta, providing access to under-collateralized lending, because ultimately, if you look at the sheer complexity of financial services in centralized finance, ultimately all of them stem from two basic kind of cornerstone requirements, which is I've got some money and I would like to have yield or return on that money, and I don't have enough money and I'd like access to some money, right? That's right. It. So it's either yield or interest rate, or access to credit, right? And what we have in DeFi, which is a really, really interesting use case, is what Dan Alitza, who actually used to be at ADEL, he left recently. He had this brilliant article on liquid collateral, and I think we're now seeing the extent to which that can play out both in a positive sense and a negative sense, whereby, for example, you can have a yield-generating instrument that you can use, for instance, if you're more sophisticated for margin trading, right? Or you can use it to take out just a simple loan against, and it can be freely transferable or transferable with certain restrictions. You can add yield enhancement through DeFi native yield on top, right? So essentially, you can create a lot of very elegant, very interesting financial instruments that were just physically impossible in traditional financial ecosystem.
Now, your project has been extremely transparent with the roadmap, the white paper, and all the dialogue that you've been having through your Discords and your Medium. I absolutely love that part of it, because as we've seen here over the past couple of weeks with a lot of these projects that sprout out of nowhere, it seems to be taking a lot different approach to DeFi. What would you say, or why should people start using Akropolis and your products? If someone were to ask, what's the difference between Akropolis and most other DeFi projects?
Yeah, sure. I actually I asked that question in a Telegram the other day. I'm just curious.
Oh,
And shall I read out the answer to you?
okay.
Give me a second to get
Yeah.
it. It's pretty cool. Um, yeah, it's nice when somebody else can give you that answer. So,
Right.
okay,
Yeah.
question number one. Question number one. I trust cats more than anonymous teams, and I mean, obviously, we're a public team.
Right.
We have been together through thick and thin. We've been together through the bear market. We made sacrifices to see this project through and to get to where we are right now. I think some people really like the fact that it's basically run by three girls. I think that also probably reflects the fact that we're naturally more conservative and more circumspect, so we wouldn't launch unaudited. Definitely. I mean, I love Andrew's work, but it's just, yeah, we're definitely on the conservative part of the spectrum for sure. And yeah, and as I said, cats definitely don't rug pull.
Right.
So for people that aren't familiar with the lingo, pulling a rug, which you get in a lot of Ponzi-style yield farms, where you basically can lose everything, where the development team just can drain the yield farm of the funds, and that happens on many occasions over the last. It's been, I think, a month and a half, right?
Right.
So we're here. We've been here for a while. We're transparent. The core team has been together through good times and the bad times. I think that's very important. I'll read out another response to you. Okay, so this is one of the community members. So a few different things. The overall level of professionalism was one of the biggest factors that attracted me to Akropolis. The other yield farming platforms made me nervous. So it's either ugly UX, full of unjustified hype, questionable or unknown team. So the moment I stumbled across AKRO, the first thought that came to mind was that, okay, this could be it. That it could be the platform that can bring DeFi to the masses. And he said, I've yet to find another project that has such good business acumen, and you checked all my boxes. So that's great to hear.
Yeah.
We were the first guarded launch project in DeFi.
Yes.
That takes a little bit of discipline saying no to a whole bunch of money being thrown at you. But we see TVL not as an asset, but as a liability.
Right.
For one simple reason is that you hacked, something goes wrong, you've got a bug. We had to be prepared to compensate for some of the losses, right? And that's a tall order. So equally, when you start initially, you don't have a clear kind of battle-tested revenue model, right? So it didn't make sense for us to lift caps, which will inevitably dilute the yields that people would receive, right? We would take on more risk. We would get more shit if something were to go wrong. And why? Just for a few minutes of glory on crypto Twitter.
Right.
It's just not something that we find appealing.
Yeah.
We're very happy with capped guided launch approach. We're very happy with organic growth. We're happy that we purposefully excluded whales and large influencers from our first initial rounds where there were low individual caps. So that means that we have from that our user base are normal people,
Right.
for whom the rewards that they get are very meaningful. Some of our early users, they've made multiple times their annual salary, and that's very rewarding to hear when you've got not a multi-millionaire, but just an ordinary person that believed in your project and you had a really positive impact on their life. Right? And that's really what we're working for.
Awesome. And I think that's it is part of the ethos of Akropolis, and you can tell by how you all have done things. And I think you are setting the standard for the DeFi space, because you're really protecting all parties' interests at the end of the day by the way you did the cap launch. So I love to see this stuff, and I think this is bringing the more validity to DeFi, and yours is a perfect use case of this. So can you kind of walk us through what has been one of the biggest challenges so far since inception to date of where you are today with Akropolis?
Surviving the bear market has been tough. So we definitely have been hit hard immediately after the Hobby EO. It's been a very adversarial situation with a market maker that has gone rogue on us. We were basically left with very limited funding, there's a lot of detail that I'd probably rather not share, but it's a reflection of how dirty this ecosystem is and what kind of games are being played, right? And that's it. It's not really our style. We don't really conduct our business that way. So we ended up in a situation where AKRO has been effectively locked from what the withdrawals have been locked for almost a year. We managed to amicably resolve the situation, and the trading has been resumed and has been open since the first few days of July of this year, right? So we basically spent a year with kind of oxygen cut off, as it were. This is where a lot of people would have probably left. In fact, we had an AMA but last week with a very influential Chinese group, and the guys there just couldn't believe, like why did you even stay? Because most people would have just checked out, right? Because it's really, really difficult when you can't, when the trading of your token is restricted and you just can't really do anything. So we, as far as I know, with on the project, that actually managed to resolve that successfully, and we're happy with where we are right now. I think also probably I can't say that anything else was particularly challenging, right? Because it's a very open and accepting ecosystem.
Right.
People are friendly, and we find that good people in crypto are brilliant and bad people are atrocious. So it's almost like the extremes are certainly exaggerated in crypto, for sure. The speed at which things evolve is absolutely fascinating. It's a very, there's a reason why we as a team stay together. There's a reason why we kept building, and we think it's a fascinating space, but we hope that a lot of the white noise that is you see in DeFi will kind of get filtered out, right?
Right.
And typically with each bear market, you have the ones that stay are the ones that typically have the right motives, and the new people that come are typically higher caliber than the majority of kind of previous participants on average, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we'll, we're definitely here to stay, and we just hope that this place will clean itself up sooner rather than later. That's
right.
sure.
Well, I think that's you make such a good point. There is kind of this diabolic mentality where there's the real people that want this industry to be part of the future and are progressing that forward positively, and then you kind of have the bad actors. So coming from your perspective, though, seeing this evolution of DeFi happen so quickly before us, really in the past few months and years, where do you see DeFi heading in really the next few years?
DeFi. I'm super optimistic. I think it's this is me. I mean, DeFi eating CeFi. Yes, absolutely. I mean, just look at the speed at which, let's say Andrea is building or other guys are building. Just speed of innovation it will give a fintech guys, Wall Street, a whiplash.
Mm-hmm.
It's absolutely unprecedented. And
yeah.
And like, we look at, for example, the banks, like, I was inside one of the biggest investment banks, and, it was like the infrastructure and the tools that people are using. It was just so painful, and any progress is so painful, and everything needs to be approved, and everything is from the infrastructure is like, massively outdated, right?
Right.
So yeah, it's exciting. I'm very optimistic. We do have a lot of white noise still, because the information asymmetry is massive. It's still very much an insider's game. But, that's inevitable, right? If anybody looks at, let's say at the beginning of what was happening with carbon credits, right? It was, a lot of people made a lot of money. There were a lot of scammers as well, right? But there were some genuine positive developments at the same time. That's human nature, it's inevitable. But I'm super excited about composable financial instruments. I'm super concerned about risks and risk frameworks. So any project that's developing a DeFi native risk management tools or risk framework, please DM me. I'm super interested in, advising, investing, being involved in that, because my biggest concern is that we're replicating very much the same risks that we had, 7 or 8, just with the, at higher speed and with a greater degree of enthusiasm. This is
right.
So just something to be massively aware of, right?
Yeah. So that's a really good point. And it's like, this technology is this brilliant tool, but are we just going to re-engineer what we already have? And I think that's where brilliant entrepreneurs like you and Kate are kind of separating themselves and trying to do the right thing for the industry and set this standard. And I think that's so important to have. Anna, I appreciate you coming on to my show today. Do you have anything else that closing thoughts that you'd like to say to our audience? And also, where do people go to find out more information about Akropolis and your team?
Yeah, sure. So our Discord is a good place. You can always reach out in our Telegram channel, on Twitter. We typically are very responsive. If we notice, probably like 1 hour a day when we actually sleep. You can, we're very open. You can always DM me or Kate, and you can reach us in our Telegram channels. You can DM me on Twitter. Super open and always keen to speak to people that think about DeFi, not from flipping or dumping on somebody's perspective, but actually building something with medium to long-term outlook.
Well, we greatly appreciate you sharing some time, and I wish the best of luck to the Akropolis team. You guys are doing awesome things, and we appreciate you coming on to the show.
Thank you for your time. I really appreciate the interest.